Welcome to CP101, and this is a update on Superman. We got a lot to go over, so hopefully I can keep this under 15 minutes. I have to keep it under 10, but I don't think that's going to happen, so I guess we better get cracking instead of me jawing. Alright, first thing we're going to start with is Superman. We've got a little change to his super suit. I've noticed that his super suit didn't have a neckline. And Superman, and all the comic books I ever looked at, read, his suit always had a neckline. So the Aurora kit didn't have one, the Revell kit still didn't have one, so I put one on there. Now, in order to bring this neckline down, I really had to use a ton of filler on his neck, because there was a gap between the neck and his body. It was a good sized gap. It took me 3 or 4 sessions to fill all this in. So I'll tell you how much I needed to do to get that gap taken care of. But it's all filled in. I didn't worry about the back of his neck because, I filled it in, but that was about it. Because you're not going to see that due to his cape. But I gave his neckline kind of a squared off look. The neckline throughout the years, comic books, it varied from artist to artist. Sometimes it was rounded, sometimes it was V-shaped, sometimes it was a shallow square shape, pretty wide. It just kind of varied, it varied all the time, and so I just took my, I just made my own take on his neckline. So anyway, I went with kind of a squarish neckline, and then of course it coincides, the neckline coincides with the cape, so when we put the cape on, everything will be looking pretty spiffy. So that is Superman. And we had to bring the red primer down to his neck and down to his chest. I found, when I put Robin together, I used red primer for the base color for any area that was a skin tone, and I really liked it because it really warms the skin tone up. I wish I would have been using red primer a long time ago to put under skin tones, because I think it makes a huge difference. So that's why we brought the red primer down to his neck, because all the red will be a flesh color skin tone, and I've got it mixed up already. I have it in this little bottle here. This was an eyedropper medicine bottle, and my wife used it all up and was going to throw the bottle away, so I took it because it would be it's perfect for a small amount of paint to keep it sealed up. It's kind of like a Vallejo or an Army Painter bottle, where it's got the removable nozzle that you can take off and fill and clean and what have you. So anyway, we've got our skin tone mixed up. It's a mix of basic flesh tone from Vallejo and Barbarian Flesh from Army Painter. And you can kind of see the how it's separated from sitting here for about a week. But it's like I would say it's 60-40. 60% the Barbarian Flesh and 40% the Vallejo basic skin tone. So when you mix it all up, it gives you a really nice flesh tone. It's the same thing I did with Robin, and then when you put it over that red primer, it looks pretty nice. So that's where we're at there with the skin tone. It's all ready to go, and I think Superman is almost ready to be painted now. I think I've got most of the seam work, filler work taken care of. So I think we're okay. The collar here, before we move on, we forgot to mention the collar is real small rod I had. I don't know what size it is because it came in a pack of assortment rods, styrene rods, but it's really thin stuff. So that's what I used to make his collar, and then I went over that with my sanding stick to kind of flatten it down a little bit to get some of that roundness off. But that's how he did the collar for the super suit. So that is Superman. He's just about ready for some paint. Alright, now we're on to the phone booth. The phone booth is almost finished. I've got still got a lot to do on the phone booth. I have to make the telephone, put in the windows, make the placard, make the roof, make the floor, put in the vents on the bottom. But yeah, I think for the first time ever trying to make a scratch-built phone booth, I think it came out pretty damn good. The cardstock model was invaluable. It really helped me as I was building this. So I had it on my desk while I was building this. It really was a huge help. I'm so glad I took the time to throw this together real quick. It made a difference. This is the shelf for the phone. It'll kind of go in here, like so, like this. And then our phone will be above that. But yeah, we used 3 different types of styrene. We used 1/4 inch square tubing. We used 1/8 inch square tubing. Then we used 2 millimeter angle styrene. And I can, I don't have the packagings. I already threw them away. But that's what we used to make the phone booth so far. And as you can see, it's a little taller than the paper one. The reason why it's taller is because I decided to go try to get it true to scale. Let me back up here. Superman. He's always been listed as 1/8. And I always just assumed that was correct. He was 1/8. But before I started making this phone booth, I thought to myself, I better just double check, because I'm going to spend all this time and waste all this money on plastic making a phone booth, and then I make my phone booth and put it by Superman, and either the phone booth or him looks stupid. So I thought, before I commit to plastic on this phone booth, I'm just going to double check Superman to make sure he is indeed 1/8 scale. So I got online and I got the measurements for Superman. According to DC Comics, Superman was 6'3". So I took the measurements of the model kit, plugged everything into the online scale calculator I use, and you can go to scalemodellersworld.com. That's where I go to use my scale calculator. It's an online calculator. It works really well. I really like it. But anyway, I put all that into the calculator and find out that Superman is at 1/8 scale. He's way too short to be 1/8 scale. Well, he's kind of sort of 1/8 scale. He's kind of in between. He's between 1/8 and 1/9. But according to that calculator, he leans a lot more towards 1/9. So I thought, well, thank goodness I didn't make my phone booth 1/8, because the phone booth would have dwarfed Superman. Since Superman leans a lot more towards 1/9, then I made the phone booth 1/9. And when he's beside it, it looks perfect. So I'm glad I decided to double check, because I would have been pissed off if I spent all this time and money into making this phone booth, and then it looked like crap and have to start all over. So yeah, so Superman is 1/9, phone booth's 1/9, and it'll look perfect when it's on a display base with Superman. The placards here on top that'll say phone. I left those open because I don't know if I'm going to light this phone booth up or not. If I don't light it up, then I can just use sheet styrene and make my filler panels, and then I'll make a decal that says phone. If I decide to light the phone booth up, then we will use clear plastic here. I'll hit it with dull coat to frost it, and then we'll put my decal on here that says phone, and then we'll light up the phone booth, and this whole panel will be lit up just like the real phone booths were. The privacy panels are 040 styrene sheet, and they're not glued in here yet, so they'll probably fall out when I'm moving this around. But anyway, I got the dimensions online. I don't know what website I was at, but I printed them out. Now this phone booth is a little different than mine, but I really didn't give a shit. I was mainly looking for the dimensions to get me in the ballpark for mine. So using the dimensions, we got this. I took all those dimensions, plugged them into that online calculator, and we were home free. So if you want the measurements, I'll give them to you. If you want to do this yourself or you're Superman, just leave something in the comments for the dimensions and I'll give them to you. The newspaper dispenser, we printed that out in cardstock, but I think it's going to be too small now. I don't think it's going to be the right height, because I got online and I found me a website that gives the dimensions of a 1-to-1 newspaper dispenser. So I think mine, even though I already printed it out, I think it's going to be a little too short. This is the style, if you recall, that we're using. And then here are the dimensions for the newspaper machine. You can kind of see that there. And I put those dimensions in the online scale calculator at 1/9 scale. And our newspaper dispenser should be almost 5.5 inches high. And I don't think this one, I think this one's a little too short. So I'm going to have to print out a new one. Yeah, it's almost 2 inches too short. So we got to reprint the newspaper machine. Yeah, it'll be all good. I got to make the decals for the sides here for the privacy panels. It'll say Metropolis Telecom. Actually, it'll say Metropolis up here, and below it'll say Telecom since 1938. Another Superman reference. 1938 was the first year that the comic books appeared. So in a sense, that's when he was born, 1938. So we'll have that as a reference. We'll have the phone booth as a reference. We'll have the pair of glasses in his hands as a reference. We'll have the Daily Planet newspaper dispenser as a reference. So we got all kinds of Superman references on our display, and I think it'll be spiffy when it's all said and done. Alright guys, that's it. Take care, and we will see you in the next update of Superman.